Moo, and good afternoon, good evening, good night, I guess also good morning to everybody out there, and welcome to the Pinktron. Steve, what are you drinking?
Right, I'm actually on squash, and I'm hoping I'm not still on mute, because I had muted myself to eat some dinner as well. So apologies for any eating sounds, but yeah, Omnium coming up this weekend. Bit of an early start.
For us
So big games.
non-Europeans, what the hell is squash?
Cordial.
What the hell is squash?
It's a concentrate. You get a concentrate of flavor, so like Robinson's, of usually a fruit flavor, and you mix it with water, and you squash is the resultant drink.
Okay. John, what are you drinking?
I guess this could be a squash then. It's a yuzu flavored sparkling water. Yuzu being a fruit of some
It's delicious citrus.
Asian citrus. Yeah. Yeah.
Steph, what are you drinking?
Uh, got a bottle of Fanta lemon. So after a dip of 2 weeks, sales in Belgium are back up. So Steve can keep his shares in Fanta lemon up.
Uh, and I've got something similar to John. I've got a Calamansi lime sparkling water. Um, and I'm Sean. All right, so if you noticed, that is maybe the first time in a while that all of the everybody on here is not on the alcohol, and I have a feeling that is a lot of us preparing for a weekend of flogging ourselves on the bike. Uh,
Speaking of things you don't want to do on alcohol, Sean.
yeah, uh, we've got the Omnium coming up this weekend. So we mentioned it last week. Um, but yeah, this is the week I will be doing my first set of races in about 5 hours. Um, what's the plan for all of you? Is everybody racing it? Steve, I guess the small child uh may prevent the real
I'm going
commitment.
I'm going to blame that for any lack of performance, I think. But no, I'm aiming for the EMEA slot. So between about 10 and 12 UK time tomorrow, I'll be regretting my life decisions in a shed in the west of England.
Yeah,
John,
so
Steph.
same.
You're,
Yeah, I'm doing the same slot as Steve. So an hour later for me, but yeah, see how it goes. I've been lacking some sustained power the last couple of weeks at a good Rafa 500, but wasn't feeling it. So definitely race two. We will talk about it later, but race two and race three will definitely be a good test to see where I'm actually now at.
Yeah, I'll be joining you, Sean, this evening on I guess it's the Australian Pacific, the APAC time, 5 our time. Should be fun. I trained all day yesterday, sitting on a plane, sitting on a train, sitting in a meeting, and reversing all that. So plenty of
I
rest.
see. You're in that. I was like, I didn't see anybody that was in. You're in that
I'm in the lower
lower
category.
band.
Yeah.
You should race
Just
up. No.
I should raise. I think what's the band go to? 320?
325. Yeah, Steve,
325.
Steve, did you successfully get yourself down into the lower band?
Yep, he's racing in
I
my
did,
band.
yeah.
And
I
Mario
mean,
Line said we're not going to get kicked up. Is that
Yeah,
possible?
yeah,
based on
So,
she.
my performance in the week, I don't think getting kicked up is an issue.
yeah. So from what she posted, this is ZRS is what everyone is being categorized by, but it is ZRS disabled as far as changing your scores based on the outcomes of these races.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
so we
people
won't
could.
even get like at the end of it, we won't get a different ZRS score.
I don't
Oh,
think so.
okay.
I don't.
Interesting.
The word talks about. I think she disabled it for at least the first five races, so people could stay in their bands. But yeah, maybe it's even for the last race as well. But yeah,
Oh, that's going to be fast ones.
So I'm interested to know how disabled it is as a nerd. So if you set a new base power,
That's fair.
this I don't
Yeah,
know if
good
they can
point.
disable that or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you bump up, because it's I think the criteria is now based on compound score. So if you happen to improve your 5 minute power somewhere, it
Like on race
could be,
5, for
Like on
instance.
race 5.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that's gonna happen. Yeah.
I would actually guess that will change your ZRS because that is baked in
Mhm.
to like to Zwift, not just to racing score. It is the whole way that racing score is derived. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
my instinct as well, because you can do it in a workout, you can do it
yeah,
a group ride. This is like completely independent of doing a race. You can
Mhm.
change your race score by upgrading your power.
Mhm.
Should we quickly reprise what the Omnium is? Talk about, and then we'll talk about her beginner racing because that's still on this week, and then we will double back on the Omnium and have a real deep dive into it. So, as a refresher, Omnium is 6 events over 2 days. It's split into 3 time zones. You've heard us talking about that. So you have an APAC time zone, an EMEA time zone, and a US time zone. Check out the post for the details on when those are. And you have to do all 6 races in the same time zone to qualify for the final standings. So you can't sort of pick 3 from APAC and then 3 from EMEA over the weekend. We've got sprint. We kick off with a sprint on the classic, have a hill climb up the grade, and then have a 10-mile ITT on day 1. Day 2, we have a points race on Glasgow Crit Circuit, a 4K ITT on Mechar Loop, which is going to be horrendous, and then a 30K scratch race finishing up its climb. So yeah, we'll dive into that in a bit more detail afterwards. But yeah, gonna be brutal. Don't forget your power meter, and don't forget your towel, I think, as well.
yeah.
Bring a spare.
What's on her beginner racing this week?
It's
Anyone?
Nathan sent us a post. HBR is doing 2 bridges loop, 3 laps for A, Bs, and Cs, 2 for Ds and Es. As and Bs have been from the mid 30 minutes to the lower 40 minutes, and Ds and Es fast times should be mid to upper 20 minutes, and with a longer ride being in the low 40 minutes. Basically, low. I think 2 bridges looped. They're more than 2 bridges, but yeah, the key feature is the start of the of hilly reverse. That's the main feature every lap. So yeah.
I'm gonna. 2 Bridges is one of my favorite. I say this a lot about courses. I think it's one of the best courses on Zwift. I also think it's one of the best courses to do if you're new to racing as well, because presuming you've done fan flats and you've learned about sticking in the draft, this is where you will learn if you're going to attack, you've got to go all out. And if people are attacking, how much you can hurt to stay with them can keep you in a race, because that is the climb you mentioned, Steph, is hard enough to gap people, but it's not hard enough to make it what I'd call an FTP race. So people aren't going to beat you just because they're stronger over 20 minutes like they would up the grade or something like that. So if you can attack and attack really hard with sustained effort, which is what a lot of kind of key moments in Zwift are about, these kind of 2 to 3 minute attacks, aren't they? Then you'll do well on this course. And then the rest of the time, sit in the wheels, try and recover.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember way back in the day when I did her beginner race on this on 2 laps, that I wasn't planning on it, but I pushed it up the first time up that hill, and I got a gap, so I kept going for the rest of the lap. But yeah, I slowly faded and people caught up to me around the start of the second KOM, and I had basically nothing left to keep up with it. So, but yeah, it's
it's a really good course for I think especially a really good course when you are a little below the rest of the group because it isn't just sit at FTP, kind of as Steve was saying, like this isn't just a threshold test, but it is actually one of those courses that gets the most out of you. I've set many PRs chasing groups on HWR or, I think I raced this one up in B and ZRL one season. And I've gotten like both, I think 8 and 20 minute power PRs from just like doing whatever, turning myself inside out to hold on to a group through that. Because it goes through the
Yeah.
S's first, and that is always like
Yeah.
that's always a rough first few minutes, as you're
Yeah.
just like trying to stick on to some people who are pushing. And then you
Yeah.
got
And
a
it's
couple minutes to recover, and then you've got the hill. Yeah, it's a good
yeah,
one.
yeah. It's never really flat because indeed you start with the S's, then you go through that Italian villas, but there you have that kicker in between the thing, in between before the KOM, and then you have the start of the KOM itself. So you're constantly going up or down. It's not massive outside of the big the start the start of the hilly reverse, which is in itself not the biggest hill, but yeah, it's a good course, I think, for beginners or any, like I said, any race course. It's quite rolly, lots of possibilities.
All right. So I guess we'll go back to the Omnium. And I will just say there are other races that are going to be populated as herd races this week. Most of them are not being actively maintained this week. So Steph was saying, he did. There is going to be a Climber's Gambit this week, but he will not be doing the Zwift Power stuff to make sure that it's based on the FTS or yeah, the time through the segments. It's just going to end up being right around Deca Dash again. I think that is the case for most of the herd races. I think that Bullseye, there is a Bullseye course listed for this week. It is on Seaside Sprint, and that's the only one that's not over the weekend. So I would actually guess that that will be kind of proceeding as normal.
Cool.
Uh,
So
yeah.
let's go into a bit more detail. So, as
Well,
a reminder for those of us, it's 6 races, 2 days, one time zone you have to be in. Each race is going to be scored on your finishing position. I'll call it for now. You get 50 for first, 49 for second, all the way down. But what determines that finishing position will change race by race. So starting with race one.
well,
Is quite
actually,
easy.
before we get to the specifics of the race, I would like to just give kind of a history and a context, right?
Mm.
So, um, the Omnium is based around a track cycling event. So in track cycling, it's on a velodrome, and this is also a 6 events over 2 days, or at least from 2014 to 16, the Omnium was a 6 events over 2 days with a variety of event types, right? So there was a scratch race, an individual pursuit, so a 4K time trial, an elimination race, a 1K time trial, so that killer race, a flying lap, and then a points race. Of that one was 40K, and a couple of years ago. So I think that the first version of this that the herd ran was in 2022, and that was right around or maybe before James moved over to work with Zwift, and so we were coming up with some ideas of like what are some event types that would be really fun to include in Zwift, like as herd events. And this like track cycling Omnium style race was the thing that we settled on, where it's a mix of there's short sprint style scratch races, short individual time trials, points races, and so that's where we settled on it. And the first year we ran this, we ran it with, I think that was 2022, with 4 hours in between the the different events and incorporating a few different types of races that we could do on Zwift that are, not specifically the types of things that you do in like a track Omnium, but that really work well for us, like the hill climb. Um, so with that background, let's get into the specifics of how we run it and what it'll look like this year.
Yeah, neat. I think yeah, we've settled on this format as well. There have been harder formats of the Omnium, haven't there, in the past, but this 2-day format seems to work really well. So we start the weekend with a short lap around Jarvis Island, as Marilyn says, make it over the climb and push to the finish as the first over the line wins the race. So we've got one lap, 8.8 Ks. Steering is disabled, no power-ups. Draft is enabled, no time trial bikes, but only your category will be visible. And you've got 30 minutes to finish the race. Now, I've not done the classic. So yeah, well, talk to me about Jarvis Island, folks.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we've all gone around Jarvis Island in the team time trial this past week on in ZRL, and Steph, you had us doing Jarvis Island for uh, the the Climber's Gambit this past week.
Yeah, but that's in the other
Right.
direction. Uh, so if you have done the St. Peter, there aren't that many. You have done this route last weekend. So yeah, it's basically start at the downtown Pens, make your way to the volcano, up to the Jarvis lap banner, and then just do one loop of the banner in a
Counterclockwise.
counterclockwise banner, doing the right bit after the banner. You have the KOM, which is the least difficult for side of the two. To yeah, it's very rolly, couple of quote unquote steeper sections, but nothing really that steep.
Yeah, this direction doesn't really have much in like the other direction has a fairly steep kick. This
Yeah,
direction is 1.8K at 1.8%. And I think the steepest part of it maybe hits 5%.
yeah,
So it, it will, I do think that that will go kind of hard, but because there's five more events after this over the course of 2 days, I don't think people are going to be trying to really break everything up on that climb, especially because it then finishes with a descent and then a sprint finish.
What are we thinking? Bike choice is going to be fastest aero, hasn't it, for this one?
I
yeah,
gotta think so, yeah.
So this is where,
yeah.
I mean, tactics become interesting on this, don't they? Because let's say you think you're going to get beaten on the hill climb. Like, are you going to try and beat people who are going to beat you by a lot, or not beat them by too much, and then try and save some energy to hang with them on the climb? So yeah, it already gets interesting at this point, doesn't it? Which leads us on to the next thing, which is Oh Hill No.
What's the time gap between race one and race two?
30 minutes.
So between the start of the two races, it'll be a 30-minute gap in between. Which
Yeah,
and this
yeah.
this first race will probably be it's 9K, is that right? So it'll probably take
15 to 20
15
minutes.
minutes. So you'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of rest to get ready for race two.
So yeah.
Do we
Oh,
have
sorry, John.
any knowledge on power-ups? I don't think you would hit it. Well, you could hit the power-up at the
Mm,
lap banner.
No,
I
no
don't
power
know.
ups.
No
No
Okay.
power.
power-ups.
Yeah. So race two is a hill climb up the grade on O Hill No. So you're basically going to go out the pens, up the hill, turn around and come down again. But only your race time on the grade segment counts. So this is one of the ones where I said kind of your finishing position. What we mean by finishing position is who is the fastest up the hill finishes first, or the fastest up the segment. So it may be that you start a little slower or you don't roar out the pens, um, and but you still go up the hill quicker. So you would finish behind somebody, but your time would be quicker, so you'd beat them. Some people may or may not do that. So we shall see. Yeah, Sean is holding his hand up. He's known for going liking to chase people up hills, which I mean, what you do in your quiet time is entirely up to you. Um,
Yeah, yeah, you
no
could
steering enabled, no power-ups, draft is disabled, and all riders will be visible from all categories. And you got 45 minutes to finish this one.
yeah, I was about to say you could think about sitting in a pen for a bit, but since the segment basically starts immediately, but yeah, you have to consider for most people it's going to be between what is it 11 12 minutes probably for the really top band guys, and in the 20ish minutes for the lower categories, so you can't wait too much, or because yeah, I still have a race after it, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for most folks who listen, it's probably like 17 to 30 minutes
Yeah,
how long the grade takes. So yeah, you're going to have a 15-minute break maybe to your next race, but that's kind of cutting it a bit close. And the next race is a 10-mile time trial. So it's a 10-mile time trial, sorry,
you,
16.1 Ks. So that's going to be a threshold effort. So I'd
yeah,
probably maximum recovery time between the two.
yeah. So start if you do 18 to 20 minutes, then you have probably indeed between 20ish 25 minutes in between the sessions, so rest or spin a bit, spin the wheels at a very low wattage, depending on
So I'm just gonna quickly move on to the next one.
yeah,
But before I do that, I think we're going climbing bike, best climbing bike you've got.
yeah,
And
yeah,
note to make sure you finish at the blue finish banner. So keep riding until you see your results on screen for this to count. Don't just stop at the top of the grade because your time won't be registered. You won't count there. So make sure you get to the finish line.
So,
Um,
another interesting piece of this is that this might, depending on how many riders are in your race, and if you know that everybody kind of got to the start banner at the similar time, this might be an area where you sit up a bit at the top, if you know you've got a gap to people behind you. Um, or yeah, there might be some yeah, we'll see. I
So
this
this is a broader scoring question. Am I racing just people in EMEA or am I racing people everywhere?
Nope,
So,
it's just your yeah.
okay, so it's not combined with results
no,
across.
yeah, it's
Uh,
basically the people in your band in that race, in the particular race you're racing against. So if there are 13 people in the race, you're racing the 12 others.
So if somebody's 3 minutes behind me, I can just poodle up across the banner in front of them.
If you know you're not going to catch whoever's in front of you, you might
Yeah,
want to
save a little for the time
discretion is the
trial.
better part of valor for the like this is a the event is all six races, like your total score across all six races. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's not going to change, like I have a hard time with this because once I get out there, I'm like, I'm trying to do the best I can on this thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
yeah, you
it'll be
get no more
interesting.
points for any more than 1 second gap, do you? So you can
yeah,
finish 3 minutes up the road. It's still only worth 1 point. Um, but
yeah.
as we say, the next thing is a 10-mile time trial on Twilight Harbour, which is around Neokio. No draft, just you against the clock. Keep going until you see the finish banner. Rider with the fastest time finishes the race. This is in the time trial module, so you get fired out. You'll be in that conveyor
Okay,
belt type thing. All riders are visible again, steering disabled again, no power-ups again, and there's no time limit to finish this one, but you will be launched, so you can't just sit in the pen for an hour and then do a time trial. I think the big question that we'll spend most time talking about is how do you pace these two races? Right.
Yeah. Well, so I guess one question I have is, does everyone leave at the same time, or
no,
it'll be 15-second gaps or something?
yeah, yeah, it's a time trial. That was also thinking, because if it's mass start TTT like they do in FRR, you could apply the same thing as in the grade. If you see, ah, are miles ahead of some. Well, you don't have to worry about another race, but you can conserve energy. But if it's time trial model and you start every 15 seconds, yeah, it's harder to pay to look at people. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess part of that question was I wonder if there will be a benefit for the people who sign up late in where in the order they end up starting. Do they get an extra couple of minutes of recovery time for the um, for that 10-mile TT? Not that I'm suggesting anyone try and game that, but that was why I was asking because it
Now everybody is signing off and signing off. Came to system earlier of
We
Russian
can find
roulette.
this out almost live. So, Steph, if you look at your start time for stage
All
3,
the
because we're in
all
the
the
same
start times
room.
are the same. They're at 15 after the hour.
I see. My start time is
there you go.
11:17 and not 11:15, so I have an extra 2 minutes compared to
Oh,
somebody
okay.
starting at 11:15.
Yep.
But
So
I
it'll be
think,
4 or 5, I guess, 5 different areas of the
yeah.
pens, and one person will get spit out every 15 seconds.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't remember how this works, whether it does kind of one cat, or it does 4 cats all at the same time, or 5 cats all at the same time every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Uh,
That'll be confusing seeing
I
who's
have
where
no
and
I have no recovery. I started well 12:15 mine time, so basically within the first minute of the event starting because I don't know
signed up
somewhere.
early.
well, it's a real shame that you're very keen and have signed up. So, I don't know if you sign out and sign in again, whether you'll get a later time now.
Yeah, I was
Probably
about
not.
this is what I meant. You just playing Russian roulette.
Um, so yeah, what we're thinking, I like if it, both of these efforts are pretty much 100% threshold efforts, aren't they? Like
I mean,
a 10-mile ITT is probably 25 to 30 minutes for most people, 25 to 35 maybe, that are doing this. Some people with higher grades will do sort of closer to 20. And the grade, we talked about that being what, 15 to 30 minutes for most people.
15
So
to 25, yeah. Um, I it's going to be hard. So you will have just done a race to start. So you will already have something in the legs even to start the grade. Um, I know what I would pace each of these at if I was fresh, right? So I know that for 15 minutes I can go above threshold by whatever it is, 5%, 6%. I don't know what it's going to feel like for when I have to balance these two extended efforts and have already done a race. And I think that's the fun of the Omnium, but it's also I I like to think I'll be able to do the hill above threshold, but does that kill my TT? Um,
I find individual time trials uh, the hardest to be motivated for, and not motivated in a I want to ride my bike way, but like to try to figure out like, okay, like we mentioned, if you're climbing up the hill climb and somebody's a minute behind you, there's less pressure. Um, so I know how to ride that race. I know if I'm in a scratch race, I'm just chasing until I can't chase anymore. And here, I feel like I don't know, like, yeah, there's people on the road and they're in front of me. Are they in my category? The guy past me, is he a higher category? Like I think it's just gonna be confusing, and I'm just gonna have a big power number on a sticky note under my monitor and
yep.
try to hit that.
And I think for me, that power number, right? So on a 10-mile TT, if you're racing it fresh, you do want that to be above threshold.
Mm-hmm.
In this, if I can hold threshold, I will be thrilled.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be able to do any over threshold at the end of. I mean, it's a 25-ish minute effort at the end of 3 efforts at the end of a 2-hour ride. Like,
And there's nothing to distinguish this course. I don't remember ever riding
So
Twilight
it's
Harbor, but it's
you're going to be doing laps. So it's 4.3. It's a 4.3K lap. I can't because I haven't got the
I
poster
think
anymore. If there's a
I think
particular,
I think it's a bigger loop, but it do a couple of laps at
but there's
least.
no
Yeah,
big rises. There's nothing to like
no,
put a little more
yeah,
in and
about 30
recover
meters of
on.
climbing
Yeah.
on the post. So per lap.
yeah.
So
For me, it's the problem is I haven't done really any long effort. Was sick in December. Did some longer rides with Rafa 500, but haven't done an effort. So for me, it's gonna be really interesting because I don't know what my FTP or my threshold is at the moment. So, so it's gonna be interesting. Also, what I noticed is interesting races one this like we discussed with the time trial you could benefit from an extra minute. It seems races 1 and 4 they start with 1 minute interval, so the highest category starts first, but for instance band E starts 4 minutes later, so they have less recovery. They have each band will have a minute less recovery than the other one before race two. Basically, seems how it's set up
yeah,
now. So
that's
and I find it weird it's that way, but because you expect it's preferably the other way around that the lowest bands have the most time to than the A bands because they're the fastest people around, so they can have
yeah. Yeah, that may be an oversight. That's going to be rough, but it's the way that it's set up. So
yeah
Well, race 3 is going to be the long, dark night of the soul. I think for me, that's the hardest of these. Well, not
I
the
mean,
hardest,
yeah,
but
we'll talk about race 5. That'll be the short dark night of the soul.
that'll be the
so
yeah.
yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I think with it being such a flat course and being Swift and you having your power displayed, I think you've just got to pick a power
Hmm.
that you're
Hmm.
going to try and stay at and just almost like fixate on that on the screen and be like, that's what I'm going to stay at. And Chris Boardman's guidance about time trials, I still figure is the best. Which if you're there and you're thinking there's no way I'm getting to the end at this power, you're going too fast. If you're thinking I'm easily going to get to the end at this power, you're going too slow. And if you're thinking I might get to the end at this power, you've got the sweet spot. So um, yeah,
And if you're
that's
thinking what's for dinner, then
Um, so yeah, I
figure it
think
out.
as we've mentioned, the fact that this is the time trial module is going to make tactical shenanigans really hard unless you know who you're racing and can catch them or immediately behind them, so they're on the screen the whole time. You're going to have to go for it. Whereas the other ones, kind of, you could see other riders and you've just got to place ahead of them. This one is a bit of a tougher one to play that way, isn't it?
Yeah,
uh, uh, uh,
I do think that this third race is going to show you whether you did a good job of conserving in races 1 and 2. I know personally, anytime I actually hit my limit, right? So if I was to actually go all out to the point of failure on race 2, I'm barely going to be able to hold tempo
Mm,
in race
yeah
3 half
yeah.
an hour later. Um, if I pace it well, I might be able to do FTP. And I'm hoping that, that balance, it's an interesting balance of like, where do I put my eggs? Which basket do I put my eggs in?
Yeah, I think the grade's going to be fascinating because with there's 13 people I think signed up in our category, Steph. So you're
Yeah.
kind of going to be able to see everyone you're racing on
Yeah.
screen at the same time. So there could almost be a slow hill climb race going on at some points, which is
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really particularly like the grade. It's not my type of climb. But was about to say Ernst is in our category for Dinga. So we're doomed for race three, Steve.
oh, and
Is it
still sit
right?
at 2.7 watts per kilogram for the entire Omnium. He'll sit at 2.7 watts per kilogram while he's resting between the races. He's probably sat at 2.7 watts per kilogram right now because he is the Rocket Man and that's what he does. So right, let's move on to day two, starting with race four, which is the points race on Glasgow Crit Circuit. So each lap you'll go through two segments. It's 5 laps of the crit circuit, the champion sprint, and the Clyde kicker. For each segment, try to set a fastest through the segment time. So it's time based, not position based. For every one of the 10 segments, the sprint and the lead in doesn't count. There will be 50 points for the fastest time, 49 for the second fastest, etc. Winner of the race will be the rider that scores the most points after 5 laps. Go as fast or slow as you want between the segments, but make sure you finish before the start of race 5. Again, steering disabled, no power-ups, draft is enabled, no time trial bikes, only your category is visible, and you have 45 minutes to finish this 15-kilometer long race.
The lead-in sprint does not count. I don't know if everyone will read that sentence.
I hope so.
Well, that can be a real nightmare, can't it? Because you're thinking, right, I just need to sit in the draft and start slowly, and some people sprint off the front on a sprint that doesn't count, and then
I
you lose.
will
They're ahead of
be
you.
I will be making sure that everyone knows about that before our race starts.
In all caps, don't sprint at the
Yeah,
first sprint.
So the
this
final is going to be on that same sprint, but it's not
correct.
double
Yeah.
points like on
No.
previous sort of iterations of this. Okay.
Um, this I know that Steve was last week when we brought this up that Steve was considering what the shenanigans might look like in this race. Um, I it's hard because it kind of depends like your times are going to depend on your speed through a segment, which is going to be higher the more people you are sprinting with. But things might break up and then yeah, like
I
do
mean, we've only
you
got 3 and 6 people in our time zone, Sean.
Do
right?
you wait? Do you wait
Well,
if you have a if you like we have like a 13 person group or field? If you're off the front and but you of or you're a bit ahead, but you see a group of 4 or 5 people a couple of seconds behind you, it's probably best to definitely better to wait for them to use them for your sprints.
I think the exception to the rule is if you're an absolute watt monster sprinter, you can probably do this however you want as an interval section because you've got the raw watts to do those segments fast. I think if you're a bit more like me and Sean, who are kind of okay sprinters, but kind of lighter in the wattage for our categories, then my motivation is going to be I need the group to be as big as possible. So I am not going to be doing any work. I'm going to broadcast that now. Any work in that to break up groups, anything like that. I'm not going to help people who want to try and go off the front because I just want that group as big as possible because I'm confident in a big group. I'm probably winning some of the sprints. That's if the race gets split into smaller groups for me, that's where kind of like I've got an okay sprint, but I need more of that draft to make my sprint as effective as possible. Um, and then you might find people who are more punchers or who have less of a sprint. Kind of that's you want to make this race hard. Kind of you just want to kind of go and go and go again. I'd have said, but
I think as someone who's 30 second to a minute is probably the best part of my curve. I think that it might be worth it for me to spend more of my effort on Clyde Kicker and then hope that I'm in the group for champion sprint. Um, or vice versa, even like spend the effort on the sprint and know that I will be able to do good enough on Clyde Kicker. But the hard part is that, you know, whatever my 30 seconds looks like on that first Clyde kicker is not what it's going to look like 5 laps later.
Mhm.
Yep.
This is a brutal one because it's essentially every 2 to 3 minutes you're doing a max effort. Or yeah, it'll be interesting because like, are you doing a max effort? Is everyone else doing max effort? It's really just based on your time relative to everyone else's times, and if people are taking sprints off, can you do well enough by doing 80% every time? Or yeah,
It's
This
basically HIIT, or how do you pronounce it? Workout session.
hmm.
Mm.
I think it's really interesting distance to time wise as well. So we've only got 45 minutes to complete it, which I'd say normally Zwift races are somewhere in the like 30 to 40k an hour speed. So you're going to do this in half an hour, maybe a bit quicker. But with it being with everyone, most people who will be doing this will know what the deal is with the points. And I think very few people would be motivated to make this super fast in between. So it could
Yeah.
end up being a race that takes a bit longer, but then that cuts down your rest time for the next race, doesn't it? So, oh,
which I would say is one that you need rest for.
yeah. Um,
I guess
And maybe
before we move on, what do we think for bike for this one?
I
I'm
was just going to move on
probably
to that. Yeah. This one for me screams Tron or
yeah.
Canada Road. It screams an all-rounder over most slippery bike.
Is Pinarello considered more all rounder or more aero this time? Because I'm mostly riding on Pinarello these days.
I'm
Or if it's
probably on the
not that,
Pinarello, but choosing a not a disc.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, something
or
like
actually maybe the disc is right if you're fast up the kicker. Like if you know that you can get up the kicker quickly, because I mean you're still going to be going fast up that.
This is where I think you need to see who you're racing as well. So I'm very much going to base it on how I think the cookie crumbles on the grade and a bit on the ITT previously. So if I think I'm a slightly better climber than most of the folks I'm racing, I chuck a disc wheel on. If I
mm,
think I'm average, I'm probably sticking like the 808s or um, some of the zip wheels on, but some sort all round loop
7.8s.
modes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, so yeah. Um, Interestingly, again, no power ups. So I really like the no power ups in this because it does come
yeah,
down. It removes that element of luck of the draw, I think, with some of them.
yeah. It's pure, more pure, pure
Well, I
effort
like
or
the way Eric does the tiny races where everyone gets the same power up,
yeah.
because that makes it kind of pure Zwifting then, but
mhm.
rather than any luck. Right, then we didn't talk about bike choice of the time trial. It's a flat time trial. You want your fastest, slipperiest time trial bike.
Yeah.
Uh, On to the next time trial, which I think calling it a time trial is just deceitful, really. You are riding on your own against the clock, but it is more of a kind of pursuit distance,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a 4 kilometer.
But it is not a flat pursuit, which is
Yeah.
Yeah,
really interesting.
Yeah. That
uh,
McIsle climb.
yeah. So 4 kilometers around Mech Isle Loop. Everyone will start the single lap of the Glasgow crit circuit. I don't think that's correct, is it? Mech Isle's not in Glasgow, or am I not correct there?
Well, the Glasgow Crit Circuit
It's in McCurry, yeah.
is race
Um,
one or race four.
yeah, I think there's a typo in Mariline's post. So everyone will
Uh,
start a single lap of Mech Isle at the
yeah,
same time. There'll be no draft. The rider that will cross the finish line first wins the race. So this is different to the
Yeah.
time trial module. There's no time trial module in this one. We all go off the line at the same time, and you are racing to finish. But all riders are visible, so it's going to be a bit chaotic with kind of seeing all riders from all groups. But
Yeah.
one thing I would suggest is you could go and unfriend all the people or unfollow all the people who you aren't racing against, and follow all the people you are racing against, and then they'll all be nicely highlighted blue in game. I won't do that because I can't even bother to change bikes before most rides. Um, but yeah, one could consider that. I think we mentioned no steering, no power ups, no draft, and you got 30 minutes to finish it. I'm actually afraid of this race.
This is the
Yeah,
one that I have
yeah,
voted most likely to make someone vomit.
Oh,
yeah.
Following quickly after a 10 sprint race, uh, this is going to be brutal. Um, it's going
H,
to take a little longer than you'd expect a 4K. So I was initially thinking like, oh yeah, that'll most people will finish that in 6 minutes, but it is also it's on gravel for
I
a
was gonna say
decent
there's
amount
some
of it,
dirt or gravel on
yeah,
there. Yeah,
and
yeah,
there's a hill in the middle.
yeah.
yeah,
Um, it's not just going to be like how long does it take you to ride 4K? It's also a interesting pacing. Like you can't just pick what power you can do for 6 minutes and go. Um, yeah, it's going to be tough.
yeah. It was about it. Also interesting since it's mass start. It's short enough, but you could see, well, at the end, well, I'm not gonna beat him, or I can stay ahead of. Just have to stay ahead of that guy to conserve energy. But if it's not only your category, but every category, it's gonna be a mess.
So this is a gravel bike, or is it? So in Zwift Insider's test, their solo rider Cervelo Aspero plus name brand gravel wheels bested the Specialized Venge S-Works plus DT Swiss bike by 4 seconds um, across a lap of the route, which is 7 minutes at 300 watts steady. Now, kind of for some boring sciencey things, none of us ride routes at a steady wattage. Um, some of us will find it easier to do a bit above a set number of watts for the whole event. Some of us will find it easier to do threshold, monster the climb, do threshold again. You're going to have to work out where you think you're going to lay down more of your power to know whether actually having the faster bike on the tarmac is going to be better than having the faster bike up the Mech Island climb, which
Yeah,
is where most of the gravel is.
yeah, but yeah, they compare it to the Venge, which is the was basically the fastest aero road bike, but I don't know about versus, I
A
don't know,
TT
a
bike.
KDAC or a
Mhm.
TT bike.
Yeah.
But because there is a decent chunk of gravel, including the climb, but there's also a decent chunk of tarmac. And I know gravel bikes in general on tarmac are not particularly fast.
Well, here's an idea. You just ride it like a group ride, come in last, and then you smash the next race. You forfeit however many people you're racing against in points, hoping that you can come back 40 minutes later.
So in the comments on the Zwift Insider post about the Mech Isle loop, somebody asked if any idea if a TT bike beats a gravel bike in a TT. And somebody just said Zwift TT Racing Series is on this course this week, one lap. I think most people on a TT bike. Um, yeah, I think that there is an interesting argument to be made. I'm probably going conservative and just riding a TT bike with the disc. But I might get to the dirt and really regret my decision.
It is a shame because IRL, you typically run wider tires on road bikes than you can on TT bikes. So if the
Mm.
TT bikes were more affected by gravel, that would be quite
Yeah.
realistic. I suspect they won't be, which is what makes them faster. I think they'll be as affected as road bikes are by gravel. Um, so, sad times. but somebody will prove us wrong over the weekend, no doubt. How fast do you do a 4K effort? Um,
Well, yeah, on
Eric said,
this,
I
I'm
think he
not
said about
sure.
7 minutes at 300 watts on that post. So we're looking at a kind of
So
7 to 11 minute effort for most people.
the I think a lot of people are going to be higher than that, but I mean, yeah, I mean that makes it 7 minutes at about 4 watts a kilo, or a little under 7 minutes at 4 watts a kilo. I think a lot of people can go above that, but I mean, essentially, if you're above that, you're a B, or a B in the old system. Um, so yeah, it'll. I'm not
because if
looking
you
forward. This is going to be the hardest race of the whole damn thing, I think. The
Mhm.
if race 3 is the dark night of the soul, this is the dark seven
That
minutes.
the
Like
dark stabby bits.
yeah,
yeah
Yeah.
yeah you
I,
would because like you said, it's 7 minutes for that four watts per kilo. But if you look at it, it's 4K. If you look 8 minutes, it's 30K pH, which doesn't seem that fast for a TT in general. Most people do that in a general road race
yeah.
or a Zwift race. So
but you're gonna have so much fatigue in your
yeah,
legs, and then you're gonna
that,
try
that
to be
also
going well above your long term, right? You're gonna be trying to hit your 6 or 7 or 8 minute power, which is I don't I don't suspect I'll be able to do that at that point in the 2 days. I think
yeah
it'll
I
be
do think
humbling.
I do think Steve had a point here that this is, I think, one of the fastest ways to do this is going to be riding a lot of it a bit above threshold, but really hammering it up the climb
Mm,
and kind of recovering a bit down the climb. Um,
hmm
like I think that there is going to be a decent amount of time to be saved that way. I do think this is also it is a short enough race with a high enough intensity that you need to be spinning things up right off of the line. You can't just get right to your power. You like it might be a bit of a sprint to get up to your 40 kph or whatever out of the pens.
hmm
To like I think that there's a few seconds in that just in getting up to speed quickly.
yeah, and also because that first section is tarmac for a bit, and you have that wood bridge, and then you start the dirt. So as much speed as you can take into the dirt, because the dirt slows you right down. I noticed that doing Maca loop for a bit. So
I think you're right on the start, Sean. I think this reminds me of kind of back in the day with the Stampede, before we had the ability to have those start TT start module. You'd have to get up. People would sprint out the pen to get up to speed and then settle down at their TT pace.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I think the equivalent race, at least in the first year of the Omnium, was a 3K completely flat time trial on Tempest Fugit, and it was basically just from the pens to a bit past the Fuego Flats sprint. Um, and that one was a fight for your life, right? Like that was 4.5 minutes of like all out, and that one really like that one required you to like I was sprinting out of the pen and then just you know holding on and looking at the power number through a little tunnel by the end. This is going to be a differently paced and little longer effort, but yeah, I don't think that the tunnel will be any less apparent.
This is where, so I'm interested in how the kind of is there in effect a combined scoring based on finishing position across the whole weekend? So let's say Steph's won every race so far. I would have to, I can't beat him if I've come second at every race so far, if he comes second to me. So, but let's say John has won every race so far, and if wins 6 out of 6 in APAC, does that go up against the kind of number of races I've won in EMEA and you've won in America's time slot in our, like, assuming we're all the same
Yeah,
category? So actually, you might be motivated to try and win this, although you might not need to win it to win your time zone.
right. Yeah, I don't know. I do think that I'm more likely to stick with the TT bike because I'm not sure of what the rolling resistance, because rolling resistance changed at one point, and so gravel got easier
Yeah.
for road bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't actually know whether that gravel bikes being faster on this is still the case, um, or not. Yeah,
Let's
I was
let's move
about to
to
say,
oh,
I
sorry,
was about
Steph.
to say you could there isn't enough time to do a proper recon test to test the two out because the weekend's going to be long enough or hard enough as it is.
all right.
Right, let's move on to the big finale, which is
Yep.
a scratch race up It's a Climb. Um, Now, I don't know. Maryline said I'm going to assume it's the route, even though the route gives a slightly different distance on Zwift Insider to what Maryline's given him. Oh, there's a 9K lead in. Put 0.9K lead in. So yeah, 30Ks. It's a climb finish. It's flat. You do the sprints, and then you hit mine, and then you hit Itza, which are 2 climbs at the end. Um, the only thing you have to do is finish first, get over the line first. Another scratch race. Again, no steering, no power ups, no draft is enabled. No time trial bikes. Only your category is finish visible, and you have all the time you like to finish this race. So if we could make it we just agree it's a sprint up. It's at the finish. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
like
Wait at the
Greg said,
start for Itza.
I was
Just get
about to
up and
say,
park.
yep. But like Greg said last week, there's gonna be just one random dude that does that one race and just decides to mess things up.
Well, we'll have Ernst, and Ernst will be like even not messing
Yeah,
things up. He is fast on the flat. Like he will make it
yeah,
harder on the flat than I will want it
yeah.
to be on.
Will you use him as a pacing domestique to catch everyone back
Um,
that prize?
so yeah, I can't remember what bike. I think this is with the climbs. It's still an aero bike, isn't it? They're pretty.
I think the
Uh,
Pinarello, if you've got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mayan isn't really that steep, and only for each side, it's only that last section with some steeper pinches in it. But yeah,
so is that an argument to actually take a slightly more climby bike? This is where I'm never sure with this because I don't need to be faster over the 30 kilometers. I need to be
Yeah.
faster in those 300 meters. Um,
On the
so
assumption that nobody's going to be hitting it hard on the flat.
hmm.
Yeah. Because they're going to be tired and everybody's going to be anticipating that the real shenanigans aren't going to start until, well, when will they start? Will they start on the first climb on the Mayan, which is rolly? It's not too steep. So unless there's a big difference in power, I would guess people are going to be pretty close to each other. And then you got the little downhill and the flat for the first half, 60% of ITSA. So yeah, you could probably make an argument for a climby bike if you're really only racing the last half of ITSA.
yeah, probably it's also probably that last section with the fatigue already from all the events, and especially that pursuit distance. I think for some people it's just gonna maybe just get to the finish in whatever state you are,
Yeah.
because you don't know how your legs are feeling after basically six efforts over the past 5 efforts over the past 2 days.
This
Oh,
is
I
How
know
one.
how
well you
I'll know how my legs will be feeling.
yeah yeah and
I
how
think
well
I
you
think what's
can
going to be neat.
recover in between.
So I think what's going to be neat is with signups where they are. Like if I when I last looked, there was about that's the tiny races. There's about 10 to 20 people in most of the events that I've seen so far. I'm going to live check my phone, which always makes a great bit of audio. Let's look at the sign up tomorrow. So we've got 6 in the top category. I think it's 10. The next category, I don't quite understand. 6, 12 in the category I'm in, and 4 in the bottom category. It's a bit like a ladder race, isn't it? All of a sudden, that kind of you've got
Yeah,
9 other people in the race, and you can see all of them. You can see all their watts per kilo down the side. So I think it is going to make it more a race of moments than it is a like one of the bigger Zwift races where it's like actually just try and be in the fastest group I can be in for those moments. So
Well, if it's consistent and you've been racing with the same group of people for 5 races, you're gonna have a pretty good assessment on that sixth
yeah,
race and kind of know like, oh yes, that's the very light person I'm racing against. So
so a couple of other quick notes. 5 ZRS bands are racing. It's 0 to 199, 200 to 324, 325 to 449, 450 to 574, and 575 to 1000. As we mentioned, Swift Racing score movements will be disabled for the Omnium races, so don't have to worry about upgrading. If you don't do all of the 6, you might see a DNQ on your Swift Power result, which is just so Marilyn can generate the league results. That will be restored afterwards, so kind of you get that data still. You need a smart trainer or power meter. You need some form of cadence sensor. Most smart trainers have got them on, so don't worry about that. Heart rate monitor is required. No indoor bikes without controlled resistance. You have to be on Zwift Power. And if you finish on the podium, your activities must be saved as public for verification. And
yeah,
hey,
and all,
Councilman has joined. Brent Robinson has entered the chat.
yeah,
Hey everybody.
What you
yeah,
drinking?
and what?
I honestly I literally like got out of my car, came in, forgot to grab a drink. Oh, well.
Yeah, I was about to say for people interested not in ZRS but Velo, check normally the DNQ shouldn't be an issue for your Velo movements because it's done way later than ZRAP should process the results. But if there's any changes, Marilyn could ask for to refresh the results after the DNQs are removed.
Do you think the Zwift Racing score movements being disabled will affect Velo?
No, I don't think so. They work separately. Yeah, and they have no. The only reason that ZRS was disabled is you won't move up a band, but Velo bands have no influence if you're, I don't know, if you move up from, I don't know, from gold to platinum, it wouldn't change your band anyway. So, and Steve has rushed away.
Brent, so we've just done a deep dive through all 6 of the races. Is there anything in particular that you are excited about, dreading?
The dreading is 100% hill climb to TT.
Yeah.
That one I think that's the hardest turnaround, I think.
For you, what does the pacing on that look like in your head? This was something that we were really like, we're not really sure about what that's going to look like for us.
I think like at the first well, I don't did you guys talk about like pacing the grade in general?
Yeah, I mean, we did mention that this is one where it might be that you get near the top and realize that you've got a buffer behind and you can sit up a bit, but
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean just I think the like I don't know how many people are listening have raced the grade or sort of tried to do a PR on the grade, but I think my general advice on the grade is like it's really a lot steeper at the top. Like
Yeah.
don't think it's like if your target like I'm like a 13 some odd minute grade guy. When I go out, I don't like aim for my target power at the bottom, right? Like, 'cause if you're on that target power, you're actually probably going to leave time on the course at the top. So like if I was trying to do like 330, I'd be doing like 320 on the bottom half and then trying to hit 340 on the top half. So, I think essentially what you're aiming for is like a probably like 95 to 100% threshold,
On the
maybe a
bottom.
little over 100% threshold. Yeah. And then get like
Yeah,
just on top of threshold at the top. And then I think the TT is more even, right? Because it's something pretty flat.
it is Twilight Harbor.
Yeah, right. For exactly 10 miles. So now you're looking at like a 23-minute-ish. Like I'd be in the 23-minute range, I think. So I think that's a lot more like just sit on threshold as long as you can to get to maybe the last quarter and then squeeze it out. I think is all you can really do and see like when you get halfway 3/4 through, you might be saying threshold's all I got today for 20 minutes
Yeah, I'm
or
not even
25
sure I'll be
minutes
able
or
to do
30.
threshold on
Yeah.
that, but
It depends on like I mean, everybody's recovery is different. Everybody's sort of how much those types of efforts take out of you versus sprints is different. Like, man, I've sure been learning recently that like even in the last 4 years of Zwifting, sprinting kills me way like those supra threshold efforts, the 2 minutes at map, those 30-second at ANC type efforts just take way more out of me than going 20 minutes at 300 watts.
Hmm.
So, um, I might, other people might feel differently about it, right? So that's what I think is going to be the hardest turnaround in the whole thing. Especially because like so many people at Swift racing are used to not time trial racing, right? Like you're used to like
yeah.
sitting in and then going like some 1 to 5 minute smasheroonie at some point, which kind of makes the race and then maybe a finish sprint.
And this has three really difficult time trials, essentially,
Mhm.
right? Those two, and then the 4K, um, yeah,
Mac Loop.
Mech Isle Smash Fest.
Yeah, which is of course like the opposite um of the grade pacing and that you're going to want to go like as hard as you can almost up that hill and then squeeze it out on the downhill
Yep.
to the finish. I've done a Mech LTT. It is unpleasant.
Uh, did you do it on a TT
Yeah,
bike?
yeah. I think
Uh,
you can't. There's too much actually pavement from the start to the climb and then on the backside on the downhill with the speed, I think.
yeah,
And you go awfully, you still go pretty fast up the hill. Like I think you're still doing what, 20, 24 kph?
probably, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's the in-between recovery? When you finish race 3
Hmm.
and you've got 22 hours before your next race, what do you do?
Eat,
Eat,
eat as
drink, be
much,
merry?
yeah, as much carbs as you can refill with.
Okay.
Sleep.
Good sleep.
Yeah, have a good night's sleep. Yeah.
I'm thinking hot bath with Epsom salts right after.
Yeah, I find like that makes me feel good, but it doesn't make me feel fresh the next day.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Like I
John,
feel
you got to get
relaxed and my
your
My leg
fancy boots out.
squeezers.
Yeah.
Yeah, get those squeezers out.
yeah.
I don't know if,
Um,
yeah, will there be any blood in my legs left?
In more normal times, I would probably do not quite an ice bath, but basically run a cold water bath and jump
Okay.
in that afterwards.
I don't care
Um,
if it's good for recovery. You will never catch me in an ice bath.
um, I will
I'll just
be
go
kind
run
of
around outside in the snow.
I was gonna say, roll around in the snow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the in-between bits? Because it's the fueling in between that kind of that's the bit that like I think some form of preps can be helpful to not have to run back and forth to the house or back and out of the room to be prepping stuff, to have your stuff there. But you also don't want to be, this is something to not get wrong, like too much or too little, I think, kind of, because
Mhm.
like they're quite explosive efforts. Um, and yeah, don't sort of neck a liter of water and then projectile vomit that across your trainer.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably have one or two bottles of mix. Not that I'm gonna necessarily get through all of it, but I will have that and like 40 grams of carbs in like chews. And in between each of like I will have some of that before race one, and then a little in between each, and try and pace it so that I actually get through 60 to 100 grams of carbs per hour. Um, I think it depends on like how well trained you are to ingesting carbs during your rides. But like this is one of the we've talked about this in previous things where I think Craig is maybe not as like into getting the carbs in during the ride. I think this one is one of the ones where it really is essential because that last effort, you're going to be finishing almost 2 hours after the first one starts. You're going to be whatever 1,500 calories in at that
Mhm.
point.
Yeah. Well, it's 75 minutes between the starts, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So you're probably finishing, yeah,
hour
between, yeah,
40.
yeah, D's will be pushing 2 hours. I think B's will be closer to 90 minutes, I think. Yeah, maybe a little lower, maybe
I
like
mean, it'll be
100
basically an hour
minutes.
140. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
an
which
hour 40 or an hour
is
Plus,
like definitely in the range
45.
of your muscle glycogen is depleted about
but
halfway
yeah,
through.
plus your warm up. Uh,
Yeah.
like
But I don't think I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it's in like the super multiple hour
no,
fueling, right? Like,
no. I'm not talking like you need to do fuel as if you're doing an ultra event, but I will say that I don't think a lot of us are well trained around doing multiple hour long high intensity events on consecutive days. And I think that getting those carbs in on the bike on day one is going to help
Yeah.
you a lot day two. You don't want to dig yourself into a hole that you can't eat your way out of after day one. I know, so for me, I'm doing the late races. I won't have the rest of the day to get
Right.
myself recovered. So if I dig myself a hole and then go to bed, like even if I eat a decent meal, I'm starting in a hole the next morning.
Yeah,
It
your sleep is
is
gonna
going to be
be,
rough.
yeah,
yeah, it's always good to remind people like minus about that 15 minutes after you finish an act. Like, I guess that's the curious thing, right? It's like those 15 minutes after you finish an activity is when your muscle glycogen uptake is at its most primed, right? Your muscles are like, God, I'm tired. I'll take anything you give me. And so
Mm.
if you kind of do that refueling right away, it's the most effective. So,
It's
you
also
know,
the time
when,
at which you are least interested in eating, at least personally.
yeah,
I found
I
that
know.
chocolate milk is the secret. It's
Mm.
got carbs, it's got a little other stuff in it, and I can drink it. That's the key for me.
I like a banana. A banana is usually my sort of
Yeah,
go-to thing that I can stuff down my maw if I need to.
right.
Sometimes a peanut butter sandwich.
yeah, probably gonna have like two mixed, yeah, bottles with mixed, with each basically having enough for 1 hour each, because that's also after that from my strategy, because when I do my longer rides outdoors, I basically have one big one of my bottles is basically my car bottle, where I basically put on all my carbs in. So basically, if I do I don't know, a 4 5 hour ride, I probably have like 400 grams of carbs in that one bottle and just sip through those
Wow.
4 hours. But you can't do it in this because you have to take in the drink at the same
400
time.
grams of carbs in a bottle?
Yeah,
Yep,
how are you dissolving all of that?
That's like a pound. That's like a stick of butter inside a water bottle.
yep. Just for me, it's mainly when I do it, it's mainly table sugar I put in. Yeah, just sugar water and just sip between it, and I have the other bottle is pure water. And if it's a long ride or hot day, I have an extra water bottle in my jersey pocket at the back
I think
for
I think we've
yeah.
got a new nickname for Steph, the hummingbird.
The hummingbird.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I'm not sure table syrup has 400
Yeah.
grams of carbs in a liter.
I did see, I think it was Katie Kookaburra. She's got a channel and she just chugs maple syrup out of the jar before a race. Like, yeah, it's carbs.
What you might know better, Sean, but I thought the sort of science on carbo loading, like the whole like eat a big plate of pasta the night before, was kind of a bit out. Like maybe it ain't such a thing anymore.
It is. So it is still you it's not necessarily that you can do it all the night before, but the 3 days leading up to, like, you really can top up the glycogen. But there's also, I think there used to be assessments or the science on it was that going over about 100 grams of carbs was like the maximum based on gut uptake. But that's even like if you balance the carbs, like the mix of types of carbs and train your gut, there are people who can go up to 120, 140 grams of carbs an hour, which is crazy,
And use it.
and use it like it,
Yeah.
and not end up with like jelly belly.
Hmm.
Now, when you're
You know,
doing,
the French football team used to have boiled potatoes 4 hours before games because that was sort of intake and when it released.
I'm
I've
gonna
just got some golden syrup out of the cupboard,
There you
and that
go.
has 79 grams of carbohydrate per 100 grams of golden syrup. So that's and bidon's what
okay,
500 ml. So that's
so
pretty
it's
much
yeah, same as Steph's.
yeah.
yep, pretty close.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it works, and it's yeah. But like you said, it's something I trained, of course, through the time, because in the past I had add that sugar over two bottles. But yeah, I found it easier to have one carb bottle and just one for plain water if I need just some normal drink. But yeah, for me it works, but everybody is different in that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this year. Previously, I found it's not so much the proximity of the three events that's hurt because it's like a slightly longer race. The kind of you're not putting that huge an effort in that compressed a time, but it's the repeating it the next day that was
Mm.
challenging for me. But this year with it's the race 2, 3 and race 4, 5 combos, which I think are super hard because you've got it's what's going to be around a 20-minute effort times two. And then you've got what's going to be two super hard efforts. It's going to have to be a hard interval session, 10 intervals, and then finishing that off with the 11th interval, which is going to be 8 minutes long, we think, and 7 to 8 minutes long. And yeah, that's just going to be brutal. So it's those combinations that I think are going to prove really hard to go through in the first place, and then that recovery between the two, I think is going to be even worse. So for some reason, I think if it was a sprint, then a points race, then a TT, and then a hill climb, the 4K ITT, and then a scratch race, that would feel easier, because it's different types of efforts. But
You're more in control before that for short ITT. Yeah.
All right. Well, given all of the talk about getting carbs in about 4 hours before your race, I need to go eat some sweet potatoes and
buy some bananas.
Oh yeah, I might throw a banana in the gullet as well, because I race in 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
So time
Nice one.
to
Good luck, Sean. Good luck, everyone. Really,
Yeah,
who's doing. Yeah.
yeah. Good
Jump on
luck,
Discord.
Sean and John.
Did you guys talk about Discord?
No, jump on
So
Discord. Have some
yeah,
fun.
jump on the Discord, especially for Omnium. It's usually like everybody is commiserating. I mean, listen, sure, turn it off for the TT, turn it back on, or just put everyone on mute and put your music on, whatever. But like seriously, it'll add to your enjoyment. I know like it's a bunch of randos, maybe if you're new to this, probably not if you're listening to this podcast, we're being honest, but like it it really does add to the experience to like get on the Discord and chat with the other people who are doing this nonsense.
yeah,
So
misery loves company, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Also, we're gonna have a mini, I think, a mini silver squirrel battle in our ABO race. It's me, Steve, and another the member of the squirrels signed up for the same slot. Plus Ernst, an ex squirrel. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. First Omnium for me, so looking forward to. I say it now, looking forward. It is probably Sunday at 1 p.m. my time. I'm gonna be exhausted in bed probably.
All right. Well, Brent, do you want to sign us off?
Sure, we'll say thank you to Sean Fogenberg. Thank you to Steve Pritchard. Thank you to John Keenan. Thank you to Steph Etchen. Thank you to everyone racing at home. We'll see you this weekend at the Herd, Omnium, Moo,
Omnium.
and good night.